So now here we are going to talk about the process. You have to start with a lot of preparation. When you are thinking for abroad education, you have to make a note of certain important points. I have a lot of experiences and I have noted down all those experience in a point wise so that you won't face any problem. There is a moment that when the student has received an admit and when they are appearing for the visa interview, they face a lot of problem and they realize that, oh, if I have been knowing this particular situation, I could have done it in advance, but now it's a time is very less because I have an appointment of my visa, and I have very less time. So here we are taking the points which is very important to know, and then in the reverse order, accepting ourselves like we have been already admitted, and then thinking about it. So the first point, if it's related to your passport, if you look very young in the passport, then please change it. This is a very serious concern in the consulate, that many times they have realized and they have been told to the student that please change your passport. We cannot issue a visa in this passport because you looks very young. So the photo in your passport plays very important role. Many times the student also said that they have a sufficient validity. They have already visited many country in the past, and they have already the visa stamp in the passport in the earlier country or a different country they have visited. But still, in spite of convincing the visa officer in certain consulate, they have been denied, and they said that please change the passport and then only we can process your visa. This usually happen in the case of German consulate. So please take a serious note that check it out your passport. You should not be look like a young boy, and your face expression. Suppose, for example, you made your passport when you are in 10th and 12th standard. Now your face expression has changed. Then please take a note and do change the passport, or probably show your passport to your experienced people and make sure that you looks the same. Also, it's very important to note down that your passport have a sufficient expiry. If your passport is expiring shortly, then you should change it. In certain consulate, it is a requirement that at the time of issuing visa, they need minimum 6 months to 1 year validity of your passport. So make sure your passport is up to date, and if it is expiring soon, then you should be able to change your passport as soon as possible so that you won't face any problem later on when you even arrive in the country. Now, the important part about the individual semester mark sheets, it's very important in certain consulate that they demand and they wanted to check it out that how many backlogs you had in your previous education, and they demanded to show all the failed mark sheet during the interview. So it's very important that you should take a serious arrangement about the individual semester mark sheets. Now in certain cases, some student have been in the thought process that they already have individual semester mark sheet, because in the first semester and second semester usually get combined after the end of year, and they believe that okay, first semester mark sheet is already there. So in the case of Pune University, and if you have been passing all the semester at one attempt, you should be having total 8 mark sheets. So there is a one semester and then 1, 2, then third semester and then third, fourth, similar way. So you should not be having only 4 mark sheet which you get at the end of every year. You should be having every individual semester mark sheets. For example, one student has got failed in the even semester, then possibly they have another mark sheet having another pass mark sheet. So in that total count, they should be having total 9 mark sheets. So I hope you get a very clear idea about the understanding about the individual semester mark sheet, including the failed one. If you have lost it, then make a FIR and do apply an approach to the university for the arrangement of a duplicate mark sheet and get it handy. It's very important to have it in hand, and this is the correct time. If you belong to a top category of your batch, if you are a topper of your university or maybe a college, then get a ranking certificate issued by either HOD, principal, or the university. Usually even the topper does not pay a proper attention and they don't collect that kind of rank certificate. It is very important to sell yourself for getting an admission and also for your visa perspective. So always be think about for obtaining a rank certificate from your college, and you can even show a draft to your HOD and principal to issue you such kind of letters. It will help you for your application and visa perspective both. In the transcript, usually, it should contain a grading system. In USA, Canada, you don't face much problem, but when you apply for your European country, then it is a problem that they need to understand what is a grading system. So grading system meaning is that what is the minimum passing marks or what is the maximum passing marks at your university. At University of Mumbai, Shivaji University, at Pune University, the minimum passing marks is 40% and the maximum is 100%. So you need to make sure that you have a grading system printed in your transcript. If it is not printed, request your college to give you certain kind of certificate which consists this grading minimum requirement of passing a bachelor degree and maximum marks to obtain a degree. And also a classification, what it could be called, that 66 and above is a first class and distinction, 75% and above is a first class with distinction. Whatever it is your university define the grading, make it sure it should be documented either in the back side of your mark sheet or maybe the additional paper along with the transcript you should be submitting. Otherwise, they won't understand what is a minimum passing and what is a maximum passing. Now it's another point that about the discrepancies in the name. Please make sure that all your documents should have a consistent name. I have observed many times that the student has a different middle name printed, or maybe the spelling was different in certain education document and spelling is different in the original passport. So you make it very synchronized. There is a process that you have to get it, your both name belongs to the same person can be obtained from a gadget office. You have to fulfill all those gadget office process where your name will be published in 3 newspaper, and there's another gadget document you get it that both name belongs to the same person, and it is very important documentation, and it's an important part for your visa. Many times the student has submitted an affidavit of support printed in 100 rupees stamp paper stating that both name belongs to the same person, but in some consulate they have not agreed to just only submitting an affidavit support and demanded that you need to get it done by the gadget office, and they have to further process for the gadget office process. So make sure that all the names is printed correctly in 10th, 12th, each semester mark sheet of your engineering, degree certificate, passport, IELTS, and GRE. Make sure you enter everywhere wherever you give an examination, either it's IELTS, TOEFL, or GRE. You enter correct name in your majority of time. Students do mistake that even in their passport they have a middle name, but they don't write. They just write their first name and a last name, and their TOEFL and GRE score is printed as a difference. So make sure you type as your name belong to the passport. It's about the birth certificate. It's not really required when you are applying for English speaking country, but when it's a European country, they really need a birth certificate which should be in English. So make sure you have a birth certificate printed in English. It should consist your first name, your parents' name, your correct date of birth, and it can be obtained from a local municipal council office. So you should be having that is translated either in English or printed already in English. Nowadays, it is possible to get a birth certificate entirely in English. There is a different version has arrived in all the municipal council where you can request and submit your native language birth certificate, and they will issue you the English version for it. So you do not need a translation. You can obtain directly from the municipal council directly in the English version. You can check it out with your local municipal council. Make sure that all the names, first name, second name, and last name has been no spelling mistake. Please make sure that no spelling mistake even in your parents document, and because they also have to submit their income tax document when they have to sponsor your education, they'll be also demanded to submit their ITR. They also demanded to submit their identity proof, and there they need to also carry the same name as they have in your own document. If it is, then you can always consult me. I can able to guide you what to be done, and but no name discrepancy including you and your parents in all their documents. Keep all the income tax records of your sponsor ready and very clear. It is correct time to think about it, because it is needed that when you apply for the visa, sometimes they ask for the submission of income tax document. So make sure that income tax is filed regularly on time, and you should be having sufficient gross annual income to be shown. It is not really too much headache for the salaried people, but when the parents are belonging to a business category, they need to show a proper income tax filings to be in a sufficient capacity to sponsor their son or daughter education in abroad. So it is very important to file income tax returns and understand that from a counselor that what is the minimum value in income tax gross annual income should be printed. So probably we can understand your entire profile and able to guide you further. But this all things has to be very clear in your mindset before you starting the process, and this is the correct time, because income tax return cannot be altered after you file. So it is very important to understand this point too right now. And it's also important part to obtain your education loan too, because without income tax return you cannot get an education loan. So it's very important to make sure these documents are correct in order. Point that whenever the student are showing their account statement of their parents, it is has to be very clear that they need to show a saving account statement. Current account statements are not acceptable for visa perspective. You cannot show a company bank account statement. If it is only for those people whose father or parents, they have a proprietorship firm and they use those bank for their own expenses. So it's very important to have transaction in the saving account. If they are not maintaining the saving account, do insist them to do the transaction, transfer money slowly in the saving account and every month, so that you have a sufficient time to build your saving account of your parents and begin for your visa process all set ready. Because current account statements, even though you are a proprietorship of your firm, it is not acceptable. They only want saving account statement for your visa perspective. My personal request to everyone that to meet the education loan officer in advance, because it's very important. I have seen people is struggling that their loans is getting rejected on the deadline, and they have a visa date after just after 10 days, and the loan was denied by the loan officer. So they have a complete dependency on education loan, and it was known to them that their loan was rejected by the bank. So it's very important to get your document evaluated by the loan officer, and of course HDFC Credila will help you for all those process. And for initial evaluation of your parents document, they will also keep in mind so that your loan have a higher chances of your approval, so that you start working and building for those particular points in mind. And you have a now on you have a 6 month time. If you are thinking for to study in fall 2019, you have a sufficient time to start your process. Now this word is very new, maybe new to you. This word is called apostiling of your document. When you are thinking to get your admission in Belgium, France, Italy, Czech Republic, Spain, sometimes they really require your degree certificate to be attested by the Ministry of External Affairs, and there is this strict process for it. So you have to get your documentation first attested by a notary officer, followed by a university attestation, then followed by a home ministry attestation, then followed by human resource department attestation, and then followed by Minister of External Affairs. Of course, I can able to guide you. It looks like very lengthy process, but trust me, it's a very easy process. Usually for getting this apostille document, agent could charge like 6,000, 5,000 rupees per document. But if you do it on your own, then it is hardly costing you less than 1,000 rupees. So please understand that it's not a lengthy process. You can do it on your own, and it's possible. Just keep in mind, if you are targeting this destination which require documentation to be apostille, then you should be starting a process right now, and it's a good time to start with. Many times it has been asked by the university to submit the syllabus and the module handbook to the university admission portal. Now, it was a time in the month of April, one of my students was making an application to certain European university, and there was a question asked by the university portal that you need to upload your module handbook, what you studied in first year, in second year, and third year, and final year. And that time he was struggling to download his module handbook from the university website. When it was passed out, that module handbook was deleted by the system. And the deadline of this university was tomorrow morning, and we were intense. But somehow he managed to get the module handbook by calling some people, and they have sent it at urgent note to him, and he could able to upload. Plus, but please understand that the module handbook should be downloaded in your Google Drive. Whatever you have studied, what was the pattern of your university, please download, have your official link ready with you, because it might be a possibility that some of your university might ask you to upload module handbook, and that time you should not be struggling. Now it's a point that another case study had happened to my student when he had applied, when he was in the process of his visa. Again, it does not really matter for if you are thinking for US and Canada, but still I have to tell you this story so that you can share out this story to your friends, that he was thinking to study in Germany. Now, getting an appointment in German consulate is very tedious job. So he called to the German consulate in the month of April for booking an appointment. He got his appointment in the month of July, but after booking an appointment, that he has to go and travel down to Bangalore. So in Bangalore, in the German consulate, there is a rule that if you are residing in a state for more than 6 months, from there you could be able to file your visa. So technically, until April, he was there in the Mumbai jurisdiction. But after April, he was in the jurisdiction under the Bangalore. Now, when the visa appointment date was on 5th July, which was definitely by that time, he could able to only get the 5th July date when he has called to the embassy in April. And when he had applied his visa at 5th July, the consulate had denied to take his application, stating that, sorry, you fall into the jurisdiction of Bangalore and you should go and apply in Bangalore consulate. And they have returned the document to him. So make sure that whatever the changes in your company policy it has been happening and you have to travel, make sure that you have a rental agreement ready with you and consult with your counselor first. I could definitely able to guide you if a certain situation happens in your life, and can able to correct you and plan you accordingly so that you won't face such problem. I have a good experience on those now. Make sure that all the passing certificate is being collected by you, and usually what happened that 10th and 12th passing certificate is being submitted when you have to take your admission in bachelor degree, and then you have to submit a passing certificate, and later on they do return back to you. But students do not really remember and recall this thing. They just have a mark sheet, but they don't have a passing certificate. Make sure that you have collected your passing certificate from the college you have done your bachelor degree, because there is a process. Sometimes they do take passing certificate for the bachelor degree first year, and after the first year they return back to the student, or probably when they leave the college then they return back to the student. So might be a possibility that your passing certificate is still with the college, but make sure that you have a passing certificate in hand with you. Now, booking an appointment, it's a really very tedious job. It's a very tedious job. I mean, if it is a European country, make sure that your planning is right. It happened with almost every consulate. Like if you talk about for the Italy, if you talk about Czech Republic, if you talk about Austria, if you talk about Germany, that's the biggest situation has been happening. In Bangalore, what really happened that it really happened in this current year, that in that they have to wake up at 3:30 in the morning, and hardly for 10 seconds the appointment slots are open and all booked. Hardly for 10 seconds you get an opportunity to book an appointment. That was the saddest part in Bangalore consulate. But in Mumbai consulate, we don't have much problem, because you have to call to VFS and then they help you to book an appointment. But yes, it is really important to book your appointment and thinking for visa appointment at least 5 months before your course start date. So please make sure that this point should be noted very, very clearly in your diary, that just obtaining or obtaining your admission, obtaining your education loan, and be ready with the everything, it's not the end. You have to also struggle for getting and obtaining a visa appointment. So make sure that you have everything in order and in place. Now, when it's time to start your application, and documentation has to reach to the university either by post or either in the postal format. It has to be correctly in order as they have advised. Usually what happened that the student do understand and assume that okay, this document is acceptable, I could able to just send the documentation by notary attested, but sometimes it is being demanded that that your document is must be opposed attested by the local consulate, and then you could be sending this document to us for your admission purpose. So make sure they clearly define in the university website, so understand all those points very clearly which is mentioned. And if you have any problem about understanding thing, you can always write back to the university. They can guide you whether they accept. If they don't reply you, then please understand from us that we can able to make you very clear about that what is a correct way of sending a document. So it happens that university has demanded by one student to send your all documentation in notary attested format, and he had just submitted the admission was rejected because of that document is properly not attested. So make sure you don't do this mistake. Understand each and every point clearly, and all the information is clearly available in the university website. If you don't understood, then ask. Understand the admission deadline. This is again that do not apply on the deadlines. It's very important to apply on time, and your document should reach on time by the university. And because it, of course, after you send the documentation and when university receive the documents, there is another process involved because they receive hefty amount of application every day, and they have to also update in their system. So it has to be very important note that you should be applying very in advance. Apply always early. Do not believe on deadline. Always apply early. It will help you. It has happened that the student has sent the documentation by a very courier company, and this post first went to a different country and then different country and then returned back to India. So it was no fault at student. The student has suffered because of the logistic company technical fault. And again, he has to send this document. Although this student was luckily having a sufficient time, then he could able to send the documentation once again, and it has reached the university on time. But please also understand this all the statistics is just like either 1 or 2 out of 100. But there are situations. Please don't suffer in such a way. So it's also in saying that university students do have been recommended to apply for this university by their seniors, and seniors has advised this university usually runs a deadline on 1st of March every year. But please do check the time to time the deadline of the university, because they change the deadline on a time to time or year to year basis. So do not just believe on the deadline what was printed on the last year, but it might be a possibility there would be a different deadline for this year. So please understand that unless until they don't update in the system that what is their new deadline and they are still reflecting the last deadline of the last year, then please ask them the new deadline. Otherwise, send your documentation as early if they have already started their application portal. There is a process of sending IELTS copy directly via testing institution. It do take time because you have to have follow a manual process where you have to download a form from IELTS website, fill that form, and probably if it is a British Council, then you have to send this document and demand draft to Gurgaon address, and then followed by when they receive your courier and demand draft, then further they will send the document by post to the university. So if you have given an IELTS exam and your university is asking to submit the IELTS score directly by the testing institute, then please understand it's another time taking process. So if you are applying, for example, for the university who has a deadline on 31st of January, and you are applying by 15th of January, and then you realize that you have to send your IELTS score directly by the testing institution, and you start to initiate your process by 15 January, it's too late. But please do think about this thing right now. If you know that this is the university for sure you are applying, and right now, then send your score right now to this university, even though you are applying by 15 January to that university. So sending an IELTS copy directly by the institution is very important, and it's a little bit a lengthy process. So please do have a sufficient time in hand. Have your IELTS, GRE, TOEFL, GMAT, or respective language scores like French language, German language, or whatsoever, well in hand before your application. Don't have that philosophy that okay, I can send this score later on, because they receive their admission. Some of the university admissions are very competitive, so make sure that you have a completed certificate in hand at the time of application. It will help your application only. So have your all those documentation well in handy, and so that you can able to have a very peaceful time when you are starting your application. Now, when you're thinking to study like a research-based courses in abroad, it could be Canada, it could be USA, it could be Germany, anywhere you are thinking to study, then you should be also having a research paper in hand. If you have not published any research paper, start thinking for it, and then start working and publish at least 2-3 research paper. It will help you for your admission. Apart from your good academics, GRE scores, these are the also points could be considered for a successful admission. This way they know that you are prepared enough for their university or for their courses. A good amount of credit has been given to the student when they have done some online courses using this certain website, Coursera and edx.org. There are certain websites where you can able to do this online courses. In this website, you can see certain courses, certain online courses is designed by the international university. Might be a university your name is listed where you really wanted to get your admission done. So always do certain online courses from that university, not just for the admission purpose, but for your own good purpose. If you are thinking that you really wanted to get an education into this particular sector, do it this course. It will help you both way in your admission as well as for your future internship and jobs. Prepare well in advance for your SOP and CV and letter of recommendation. It's very important. Contact your referee, especially in the case of Canadian University. It has been told by the university to the student that their referee should have a professional email ID. So make sure whatever referee you have, they should be having a professional email ID, and they can submit those recommendation letter using their professional email ID. In certain company, it has been not allowed to submit the letter of recommendation through their professional email ID. Understand those challenges first, because it might be a possibility that they may not count your letter of recommendation submitted by the referee because just they have been finishing their email ID with Gmail and Yahoo. So please understand this requirement. If you're targeting for a very top-notch class university, your referee should have a professional email ID. It will, and otherwise start working for it. Start searching for those referee who has a professional email ID. So please use a proper scanner to scan your document, and will help you and help admission committee to understand your credential reading very carefully. If it is a possibility that using your mobile scanner, if the content is all clear, it's acceptable. But many times it has been clearly noted by the university that do not upload document scan which is scanned using your mobile scanner, because they have a trouble reading certain content which is very important for them. So make sure just it's not you have to submit and you don't have time. That's why you've done a mobile scan and you are doing it. Please make sure that you show a really professional approach of submitting your document to the university. And they should always say that every time when they receive admin application document from India, they are quality. Make your country proud by saying, submitting all those documentation very carefully. And it will always help you for your admission as well. I hope you all enjoy having this discussion, be a part of that discussion, and it has been remain all the time for informative to you. If you still have any question, you can always reach me, and I will be always welcoming you to address your new queries. I have my experiences. Through that I can able to of course guide you, mentor you, and help you for your entire process. So for the time being, I'm done now, and if you have any question, you can always reach me on the phone which is there on the screen. Question from Mr. Mahendra Kumar. I have 5.5 band in IELTS. In which country I get a visa? See, it depends completely on the course choice, and it's to be very honest that it's very less band. You need to improve your IELTS and which kind of courses are you trying for. and which country are you open for. It's just not the agenda. You should be just thinking those country because you have this many Benson who's willing to actually understand that part too, that whether uh, this country is giving career value to you, and then only think about it. You can definitely visit us for the counseling. I can able to advise you further in detail, but at very short notice is very difficult to understand very quickly and guide you. Now we have a question from Nidhi that how early should I apply for a student visa? It depends definitely on a country to country. For example, if you are thinking for Canada, then this is the correct time to apply your Canadian visa for January intake. Yeah, but I would suggest like at least 3 to 4 months or 5 months you should be ready with your document in order in place, and then possibly this is the correct time to start thinking. Usually when it is USA, I advise that you should be finishing by the month of May, or May beginning, May ending. This is the good time to have your visa stamped so that you have sufficient time to work out on your further process like immunization and all. Thank you so much for giving your time, and it was really pleasure addressing all of you. Thank you so much.